All right, Marvel movie review time here on Lights Camera Barstool. Jeff D'Lo, Ken Jack, and Gooch. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments below about the Marvels from director Nia DaCosta, who's not the many movies. She did Candyman, the new Candyman movie, which I think we liked. I think we liked the Candyman movie, if I recall. Solid kind of sequel from 100 years ago. Brie Larson back in the lead role. Well, not really. It's 3 lead roles, but one of the lead roles as Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. Tiana Paris returns in this movie. She's been in a couple things, including WandaVision. I stumbled on that one. Was like, wait, she was in WandaVision, right? It's so odd that character's in WandaVision, but then when you remember how that movie worked out, that show worked out, you're like, no, actually that was integral part. She's back as Monica Rambeau. You have Iman Vellani playing Ms. Marvel, who, if you've not seen the series, she did play Ms. Marvel in the Disney Plus series, which was fine. Another funny enough related to this, another thing that was definitely receiving a ton of hate pre-release, which ended up being just solid in spots, maybe not the best, but solid in spots for sure. We found out in that show that she is a mutant, by the way. For those who are unaware going in. Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel, has reclaimed her identity from the tyrannical Kree and taken revenge on the Supreme Intelligence, but unintended consequences see Carol shouldering the burden of a destabilized universe when her duties send her to an wormhole linked to Kree Revolutionary. Her powers become entangled with that of Jersey City superfan and teenager Kamala Khan, a.k.a. Ms. Marvel, and Carol's estranged niece, now Saber astronaut Captain Monica Rambeau. Together, this unlikely trio must team up and learn to work in concert to save the universe as the Marvels. Zoe Ashton plays the villain, Dar-Ben, which we'll definitely talk about the villain. Samuel Jackson is back in this. He was in the last Captain Marvel movie, which made $1 billion, by the way.
And Secret Invasion, which sucked ass.
Secret Invasion was tough. Lashana Lynch back as Maria Rambeau, mother of Monica Rambeau, as well. This movie is quite a fascinating thing right now. It is a disaster at the box office, the lowest opening ever in MCU history. Almost less than half of what the expectation was for domestic box office opening. The word of mouth was poor before the movie came out. Reviews from audiences are actually higher for this one. The last one is very hard to compare with because remember the last one was review bombed on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's right.
There's not like a true score on Rotten Tomatoes. The last one was well liked by critics. This one is not. The last one I gave a 79 out of 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. I think the last one was, better than this one. I think this one is maybe. I think this one's maybe more fun. I've seen some people say that they like this one more. I think this one might be more fun.
Crazy.
But the last one I think there was just more weight to what they were doing. This one is very inoffensive. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. Like I just don't think it's bad. Like it's just like I had a fun, nice time with it. But I don't want to steal your line, Gooch. Gooch, you sent a line to us after you saw it that I think sums it up perfectly. They could have dropped this in as a Marvel special presentation. This is not Gooch's line. This is my own. They could have dropped this like a Marvel special presentation or like 2-part thing, and it would have fit perfectly on Disney Plus. Like it's just kind of there, and it happens, and it's a little bit of a bummer because I think they're all pretty fun together. They're all pretty good in their roles, especially Iman Vellani as Ms. Marvel. I think she's very fun. I think you can clearly see. I saw some people saying they're going through the motion. I think Brie Larson had a good time with this role, but it's lacking a lot of things to make it more than just very average. So I'll throw a 74 out of 100 on it. I had a fun time with it, but it is average at best, just above average, very lower end of the totem pole with Marvel, like right at the bottom. Not the worst, but at the bottom. We'll get into pros and cons in a minute. Ken Jack, score, thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this movie is almost on the opposite end of the spectrum with The Killer, which we just reviewed, where like I wasn't really disappointed by this movie because I wasn't expecting anything, and part of that is word of mouth.
Were in the absolute dumpster.
Absolutely in the toilet, which I think helped this movie a ton. Because if critics were blowing this shit up like they did with like The Flash, we'd be talking about it very differently. And even though they're opening to very similar numbers, although I think Flash is actually a little bit better in the box office and all that. So this is a movie where I was almost like apathetic coming out of it, which I think is a win relative to the expectation because those were so low. And I think all that said though, like there's just nothing to this movie. Like there's nothing where I came away from the movie and I was like, this is bottom tier Marvel. Like this is this scene here, this thing there, that thing there. Like nothing about this movie is in like the like Incredible Hulk, Thor 2 level bad or shit like that. But also nothing in it is above the baseline of good for them. And that's where I landed around like a 63. I think 63 is fair for this movie. Main cast is fine, like you guys were saying. I think some of the action sequences actually looked really cool, like the fight in the house where they're all sort of trading places and all that shit, and then the fight in the station, all that stuff's cool. But there is a lot of very bad thing, or there's one very big glaring bad thing, which is a problem both for the last Captain Marvel movie and for a lot of Marvel movies recently on a whole, which we'll talk to about soon, and that's like Dar-Ben and just this sort of frequency for Marvel to have these very undercooked villains and very undercooked storylines in general recently. And I think this whole movie is kind of undercooked, and that's a big problem for it. But we can get more into that with like the cons and things like that. But I landed on 63. It's not special. It's not especially bad either. I think inoffensive, which you said, Jeff, right, is pretty much the best way to put it. And I think we used that to describe a recent DC movie too, I think, didn't we? Where it's just like Blue that, Beetle? But that's not maybe it was Blue Beetle, but Blue Beetle I think was better than this.
I like Blue Beetle more than this, yeah.
Yeah, and fun is fine to describe this as well. I think the girls' sleepover movie was a good analogy as well. It's just there's nothing special. That's where I landed on it.
Yeah, it is almost a very niche movie made for kind of a niche audience. It just has a massive budget and it's part of the MCU, so it's going to get seen by a lot more people than it probably should. That's really what it boils down to. And I agree with Jeff. I think the three leads they're great here. They really do work great together. And Iman Vellani, we make fun of someone on Twitter that talks about her all the time, but like she is a great casting. She is
very good in that role.
Yes,
very, very good in that role. And the movie does not work if you don't have someone who fits that well into that spot. But outside of like those three leads working together and those fun sequences where they're, swapping places and fighting, like the plot and the story is just so fucking confusing and it's just a mess. And like, it's hard to move past that because you get like 2 acts in, you're like, what is even going on at certain points? Like people are picking up powers. You don't really know who they're fighting or what they're fighting for. Wraps up weird. I'm at a 50 out of 100 because of that. Much better than I think Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Much, much better. And has a lot of spirit to it. Like I think it's trending in the right direction for Marvel. Like, even though this isn't the best movie, like you need to recapture that magic and you need to get characters people care about. And I do think they did a good job here of like making you care about these characters. But the plot and like just everything around it is just kind of a fucking mess, which we'll talk about.
So we'll start with the negatives, then we'll start with the cons. And I think that's the thing. I think it just has this bit of a lifeless feeling. They deserve better with like a script, with a story, with a villain, something to go up against, because their chemistry is great. Like I do like the three of them together. Like they're fun and they're clearly enjoying it. But man, oh man, it doesn't need to be this world ending thing. I don't need that type of weight, but give me a villain with just something, anything. I'm just asking for anything at this point. Like, yeah, he's got no juice.
Zero juice.
He's got no juice with the villain. That's, I think, the biggest disservice here is that they're kind of there doing their thing, but for what?
Exactly.
I think it was probably very tough to find a villain that fit for these three too, because there's like the power scaling between these three is so different. Like Captain Marvel can kind of save a universe. Monica Rambeau is kind of Killmonger between. Yeah,
right? Like I don't need this Killmonger like at what Mega cost? 3D. What does this mean? What do we,
Yeah,
the bad is really good. Like just someone who can add to them. Where like the villain was just there.
Yeah, and I think again this is indicative or more of a big problem, grand scope problem with Marvel. It's just a lot of like very half baked villains. And at first, it almost seemed nice in the first half of this movie to have a villain where it was a little bit smaller in stakes, because they're like, yeah, Dar-Ben's going to destroy a couple planets. I'm like, great, I don't give a fuck. That's cool. That's not in the scale of Marvel. That's like small scale at this point, right? And that's totally fine. But then as you move on, it's like, oh, she's actually going to destroy the entire universe. And I'm like, well, every fucking villain can't do this. You know what I mean? We can't just hit a point where every villain has the same issue. And then that's where you get into running this problem with the power scaling too, because we have Iman Vellani's Miss Marvel, who's like kind of this small town little superhero fighting against this universe ending person when she already has a universe ending fighter in Captain Marvel there. And that's where I think you run into a problem. It's just this half-baked, boring loser villain that you would find in like a comic book movie in like 2005. You know what I mean? That's what you would find in like a fucking Magneto or some shit, or like maybe a better example is like big ass Cloud Galacticus in Fantastic Four. It's like, that's nothing to me. I've seen this villain 5,000 times and you're giving me nothing, and you're wasting, like you guys were saying, good chemistry between these three leads, and that's where you get, I think, out of all these things where I was disappointed was the villain. And I don't think that's the fault of the actress. I think it's just the fault of the writing and Feige and all these people not figuring out how to find an appropriate villain for them.
You also could have done something too, maybe, where it's like the circumstance is the villain, right? Like the constant warping and zapping into each other's worlds. And there's, maybe it's much smaller villains in their own space, but like Carol's on Earth and it's like a 2-bit villain, and, Ms. Marvel's somewhere else where it is like a bigger villain, but it's like nothing like crazy, but it's someone that Ms. Marvel or Captain Marvel would handle well, but like this is Ms. Marvel and she's learning her powers. Like you don't need this big world-ending thing. And I think scaling that down and playing more into the idea of what they're dealing with as the big thing would have probably, I think, worked better.
Like,
and that's
Marvel. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was going to say like Freaky Friday, like a Marvel's Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
That works. Like if fucking Spider-Man had to fight like a Thor villain, he'd be fucked.
Lean on them. Like lean on the good part. Don't add any more. You already got 3 leads. Like you don't really need anyone that's like that. Cause like the problem is we either have to go very small or large in terms of like their presence and like how they're fleshed out. And unfortunately they were in the middle, which is I think the worst case out of the 3.
Not to mention they just beat her ass. You know what I mean? Like the very first second they get to fight her, they just beat her ass. And that's just kind of like, it goes back to like, this is a boring, and I keep saying half-baked, but that's just what it is. It's just a boring, like half-baked, like whatever the antithesis of unique, just like the most boring run-of-the-mill villain that's ever existed.
It's very boilerplate. Like this felt like a comic book you'd read in like a run you don't care about. Like that's what it felt like. There's just a lot of comic book gibberish going on throughout where you're just like, do we care about the Skrulls and the Krees at this point? Do we? Like, I think we were kind of excited for them at one point, but I think we can all agree it hasn't panned out the way we'd probably hope. No. Like, it's not a very interesting storyline.
And not to mention, everyone from those two worlds or whatever has not panned out to be a good villain. Like, you could say it with Guardians, too, right? Like, I don't even remember his fucking name. Lee Pace in Guardians 1.
Ronan.
He was bad, I can't remember that. Like, Ronan, bad villain. Like, Skrulls sucked. And he's Kree.
Yeah, he was initially supposed to be the villain here. Like in the comics, he is the villain for this run, but because obviously he'd been killed off in the MCU, can't do it again. So they bring in Tom Hiddleston's wife.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I feel like everyone from these worlds has not been great. And I don't know if you just have to go to different other places. And Xandar's blown up at this point, I think, or whatever. But go somewhere else. I don't know. Find a new group of race of aliens to fight, because these ones have just not been it, and they have not been it ever. And even what's his name was Kree too. Jude Law was Kree as well. Like all these like people, all these villains that have come from this world have been bad. And like I don't mean bad as in they're really good bad. They're just not well fleshed out villains.
No. Also, I remember initially we were looking at the early preview reviews before the movie had gone wide and come out for everybody. One of the early reviews was like let off with saying the costumes and the makeup design were great. No, this is some of the worst the costumes I think have ever looked. I think they saw that one scene where they go to the planet where they worship Captain Marvel, where it's like all colorful and kind of looks like Sakaar in Ragnarok, and they're like, oh, this is great costumes, right? It's like, no, it's kind of ripping the same thing they did in that one and then doing it at a lesser rate, you know? I thought they looked really bad at points. Also, wait,
you know what? The costumes themselves, yes. If that's what you mean, if that's what you're talking about, the actual superhero costumes, they looked like dog shit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They looked really, really bad.
I'm talking about on the grand scale. Speaking of, you know what this villain reminded me of, and you maybe will resonate with this. It reminded me of like a One Punch Man villain. You know what I mean? Like I'm the denominator of the universe or something. Where it's just this like dumb, like parody level like bad guy where it's like I am just the denominator of the universe or some shit.
Down to them calling her the Annihilator. Like that's some One Punch Man. They'd come to the planet and be like, "You ruined our planet. You're the Annihilator."
Exactly. Yeah. It feels like a goofy satire version of an actual villain, which is boring.
Yeah.
Pros, I think again their chemistry is great. I think they're all fun on camera. Like they clearly are enjoying it. I think that was the thing. It's like they're going through I saw a review like going through the motions. I think they're going through the motions. I think they're just stuck with something that's kind of like they had a good time. The fights were fun. Choreography was pretty cool. Shout out to the Cats reference. With Barbra Streisand's version of Memory from Cats. That was awesome. As a fan of the movie, or excuse me, of the Broadway show Cats, not the movie Cats. I thought it was a pretty funny scene. Yeah, it's a disappointment. It's a bummer because the longer I sat with Eternals, I'm like, I don't really like it. I don't have much for that. Where this one, I'm like, this could have been fun and very enjoyable and good. Like if this was done the right way. Like you have 3 roles, like or even like Eternals, like I don't care about these characters. Like I want to care about these characters. Like right? Like I would like to. Like I kind of do, but like they give them something more to work with here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do something more for them.
Just honestly, just a better villain makes this significantly better.
Probably
movie.
Or a better setup for like how that happens. 2 big credit scenes we'll talk about. That's been the thing people talk about most. Yep. Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld's character from Hawkeye, is recruited by Ms. Marvel by Kamala Khan for what seems to be Young Avengers. She basically mimics Nick Fury's post-credit scene from Iron Man. It's kind of a cool scene. So the Young Avengers has been a thing that they've rumored about for a while. You have Cassie Lang, Ant-Man's daughter. You have, I think it's fucking Hulk's son.
Yeah.
Scar.
Forgot about that. Scar. That's right.
Probably Wanda and Vision's kids. So there's a Young Avengers thing that is maybe Tom Holland. I don't know. There's a thing that's going to pop up in the next Avengers movies or down the line. And then the big one.
I don't think Tom Holland will be part of that. He'll be Avengers.
Yeah. He's mainline.
We'll see. If they do Young Avengers, I assume they'll have some sort of crossover whenever they're in the big Avengers movie.
That is the right call they made there, though. It's setting it up and starting off with Kate Bishop and Miss Marvel. Yeah. Like those are the 2 best young ones.
Correct. And I think that maybe my one hesitation is that they're too similar. Both in how the characters are presented, how they act, their styles of humor, like all that stuff. That sort of spunky little sidekick sort of attitude, which both of them have. Maybe too similar to play up against each other, or maybe that's perfect. I don't know. But I do like
I do wonder if they'll try to get Miles Morales introduced there somehow, too. I do wonder if that's something they're going to try to do.
Did you see that Miles Morales AI kid anywhere?
Yes.
Dude, he freaks me the fuck out. That kid, but you ever see him? Though he does the AI Miles Morales from like Spider-Man 2 game. It's creepy as fuck.
Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's so weird. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much.
The big one though was the X-Men reveal. Beast. Kelsey Grammer back in Marvel. Really the first. It's tough to say. I would say this is really the first big X-Men thing that we've seen. Like true through and through, because we saw Professor X in Multiverse of Madness, but that was not the same. It's like this is
throwaway.
This is truly in what seems like at least close to the universe we know from the Fox X-Men. Mm-hmm. Yes, we do see Tiana Paris's Binary, who is typically the mother, Monica Rambeau, of Maria Rambeau, and she's like, I don't know what the fuck you are. Maria Rambeau's like Mom. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then you see in the X Mansion, in Xavier's mansion, you see Beast.
Running some tests.
Hank McCoy, played by kind of Kelsey Grammer. It's mo-capped. It's a different version of Beast. It looks pretty good, actually. I've never been a huge fan of the look of the Kelsey Grammer Beast. And I never loved Beast from the newer ones either. I do like Nicholas Hoult, but I never loved that character.
Beast
but I think this
sucks.
Beast looked pretty good. This Beast looks very close to the comic book version of Beast.
Am I wrong in saying that Beast kind of just sucks all the time? Like, what does Beast do?
Dude, he sucks. Dude, he sucks in the comics too. He sucks.
It's like the what do you call it? Like the Office Space thing. It's like, what exactly do you do around here? And it's like he just kind of exists to be like the guy that Professor X vents to, I guess. And like whenever he has to actually fight, he gets his ass beat by every other mutant. It's kind of weird. Kind of a lame dude.
There's a very funny storyline in the comics where he's like, this is like early 2000s, where he goes on message boards and like he's basically like giving like girls different secrets about the X-Men, like internal, like classified secrets, so he can like hook up with them. It's
That's
so
Jesus.
Is
this like Kelsey Grammer old Beast, or is this like young like Nicholas Hoult Beast?
It's like Ultimates. Yeah, no, he's like younger. He's like young 20, early 20s, maybe late 20s. But
I love it, but it always
like
runs the same way.
It's like him sitting at a computer, like on message boards. It's so funny.
But in the movies, it always runs the same way, where it's like he does like his little Hulk bit where he's like, "Yeah, you don't want to make me angry," and then they make him angry, and then they beat his ass. It's like Wolverine beat the fuck out of him. Magneto beats the fuck out of him, like every single time. He never. Well, Beast is like the ultimate loser. All he does is get his ass beat. Not even the best blue villain. Yeah, exactly. He's not even like the best blue guy. Like Nightcrawler is better than him.
Oh yeah, like
way more useful.
By the way, in pros, we've already moved past that. I do want to give the Marvels a little credit, a little extra credit. Big problem Marvel's had recently. I think they spend too much time setting up the next movie during the actual movie. Here, they just waited for the post-credit scene. Big round of applause there. Like, they never once stopped and were like, "Here's a new character."
I'll tell you what, he looks much better than all the past ones in terms of being close to the comic book character. I do think the Beast. So we'll see. He references. He's like, you're in a parallel universe, and I gotta go give Charles an update. You see the doors in the mansion.
Niles.
So, yeah,
you're in an alternate universe, Niles.
It's setting up what we're about to see, which is the Deadpool movie and where they are and who the X-Men are, what timeline, all that. So gonna get wacky and goofy. I'm very excited for it. The themes were a mix of the X2 theme and the Days of Future Past theme I saw.
That's cool.
Neat. Cool. I'm very excited for this. That's an exciting thing. It'll be cool to have Ms. Marvel more involved in that as well. I think it's a great character, and I hope she's in a vehicle that services that character and the actress, because she loves the role and she's very enjoyable in it. And I think while this movie's not that great, I agree with a lot of people on that. I think people being really fucking weird and annoying about this movie, where it's like, all right, chill out, like relax a little bit. Like
it's paying for the sins of the past phase. Like it really is.
Yeah. It is crazy. I can't wait to see. Maybe this is like I think we might have referenced this before. Maybe this is almost like a Marvel doing like a New Coke thing, right? Like this entire phase has just been their version of like New Coke, where it's like, yeah, check out this new thing, and everyone's like, oh, we hate this, and then they bring back the old thing, and everyone's like, oh, it's the best thing ever. I'm going to buy more of it, and maybe that'll just be our next phase version of that, because people still bought this. It doesn't matter. Still made money.
Yeah. Enjoyable. Enjoyable stuff. The X-Men shit. I just hope that it lands. We'll see.
Yeah,
Deadpool's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a lot of shit.
Yeah.
The rumors are circling that Deadpool is going to be more like what people thought Multiverse of Madness would be in terms of cameos. That they're saying that it is a shit show, but maybe like in a good way. Like it is so much stuff that it's going to be wild. It's be the only Marvel movie next year too, which is kind of crazy.
Smart.
That's it. Varying scores. I was definitely on the higher end 74, Gooch and lower end 50. I think check it out. I think don't let the negativity like stray you from going to see it or eventually watching it. Like it's a fun movie, but again, I just would not expect anything anywhere near the top of your Marvel rankings. Enough people who seem to like these movies that we follow have enjoyed it, so there's that. Maybe you'll like it. That is it, though. That is it. Make sure to drop your score below. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. Like the video. For Ken, Jack, and Gooch, I'm Jeff D. Lowe. We'll talk to you next time.